MCU fans, it is Loki time, episode number 2.
But before we delve into all the goodies of this episode, let's roll that intro. All right, now that we've actually got some sound working,
Yeah,
let's delve into Loki.
yes. Second episode, and it didn't disappoint. That's my thoughts right off the bat.
I'm enjoying the series. It was a pleasant first episode. I was pleasantly surprised by it. I enjoy for a first episode right off the bat. It was like, okay, this is probably gonna be my favorite series. And second episode is another good one.
So yeah, of course we're gonna talk spoilers a little bit into the show. So we're gonna talk about what's happened in the episode basically. So if you guys are watching, you haven't seen the show, make sure you you watch it. And
Warning for spoilers.
and then come back and watch us. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, right off the bat, Owen Wilson's character,
Mobius.
yeah, he basically again doesn't trust Loki, and Loki is needed to help solve where this alternate Loki is.
Yeah, it's funny that they have to use the one person they trust the least,
Oh yeah,
and the trust issues are kind of conflicting, and they're having trouble using him, but at the same time they need him to find this variant Loki.
absolutely. And like you'd mentioned off camera there about when Owen Wilson's character says, he literally stabbed people in the back 50 times.
Yeah,
and yeah,
but he won't do it again.
No, so he's and I think we touched on it that Loki's from Norse mythology, and he's a trickster god, and he is god of mischief and deceptive, right?
Yeah, and like we talked about this before too, that he almost doesn't realize how mischievous he is, or how much he's trying to trick people. It's just so ingrained in him. He doesn't even realize he's doing it half the time. He reads the room, and he does what he has to do to manipulate the situation.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. I always find with Loki the character that he doesn't really like. He's it's not like he wants world dominance, because it's not really what he wants. But yet he wants to kind of rule.
Yeah, he says he wants to rule, but at the same time, it's like there's something else driving him, and I think they're going to get into that character development where we really flesh out what's really truly driving him.
My thoughts on it. I think he wants acceptance, and I think that's a big part of it, because he was abandoned by the Frost Giants.
He wasn't a true Asgardian, right?
And he's always trying to win the favor of Odin.
He always had the favor of his mother.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen that in the first episode when he seen her death, or he was the cause of her death.
It touched him, because he realized how much he cared for her, and then you see it. She must have meant a lot to the two brothers, and Thor and Loki, obviously, because they both took it very hard, and it was.
But even I think they even showed the scene with Odin when he passed.
Yeah, and
he cared for his father.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted that. He felt like I think he feels like he didn't get the same level of love or respect maybe that Thor got.
Yeah, I know we're a little bit off tangent on it, but I always love those interactions with Loki and Thor, and just their kind of, and even kind of how they got to the end of Endgame, and when Loki dies, and just the feeling between Thor and Loki, and then Loki tried to help Thor, and he was upset about it, and then Thor sees Loki die.
They truly are family.
Yeah.
Even if they squabble and stuff, it is truly like brotherly love.
Yeah, and I think that's a cool relationship, and I love how they've expanded upon that over all these movies, right? And so now we're getting this extra bit with him and his own show, and you're kind of seeing that pre-Endgame scenario, and he's stuck in the middle where he's still kind of bad, but what are we doing?
Well, I think this version of him, like seeing his future, I think that'll play out in obviously maybe changing some future events, or him circumventing that in the timeline maybe somehow.
Possibly,
I think he's going to try, and obviously
make sure he doesn't die.
Manipulate it so he gets around that. I think that'll be his end goal in this, obviously, because I don't think it's just to be free because he realizes that the way they explained it in here that your timeline, your future is inevitable.
Yeah.
I think he's going to try and you know
Work around
be
it
the
somehow.
first to kind of work around that.
Yeah, he's obviously has an ulterior motive, right?
Yeah.
I kind of liked when they were in the archives and Mobius tasked him with digging into the files. I mean, I thought that was an interesting thing, and he gets tasked with it, and he didn't like it.
Yeah, I like I just like the fact that it's more of a it's not just an action movie or action show. They're hashing out the characters. Uh, they're they're actually having to figure some stuff out. It's almost like a detective type movie. It's almost like a sleuth type thing. They're trying to figure stuff out. He's got to get inside his own head kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
And it was kind of neat to watch and how they how he figured out these shows are really well written. How they're kind of fleshing out some of the ideas and like how they get from this point in the story to the next point.
Yeah.
Not your common little you cheap little episodic TV shows that we normally get like like the Bad Batch, for example, like where you just have like a little side mission or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
This actually they have a way of getting to it that's quite clever.
Yeah, and I think I've never really felt with the MCU stories that stuff happened just out of convenience all the time. I've never really. I mean, sure, there's some convenient plot points for sure, but it doesn't seem like it happens all the time. Whereas in some movies or some shows, it's just like, oh wow, he happened to be there at the exact right time, and we've talked about that in other movies, and it's like, okay, like let's get there in a better way versus just being convenient. And the Bad Batch follows that convenience factor, right? So,
Well, and there's a lot of those shorter shows and just ones that are going to be like a lot more episodes to do. When these are basically like bigger movies hashed into like hour-long episodes.
That's right.
So we do get a little bit of a more of a motion picture style type show, but with these shows they're able to delve right into this character a little bit more as if it was like a 6, 8 hour, 10-hour movie kind of thing. So they can really flesh out the story and the characters, and I like that part about it because the production value on these are so high. I love the fact that we're actually nowadays getting cinema, going to theaters, big action type movie or TV shows on just streaming. So it's changed the game.
It has changed the game, and and so Loki's tasked, and Mobius is using him to find this alternate Loki in the timeline,
which he figures out.
And what's the plan? Like, why is he or, as we find out, she is doing it? What's it for?
And who is she technically?
Yeah, exactly. So she's another Loki from another timeline.
But is she Loki? That's the thing. I'm still questioning that.
It's and I don't know where that's going. Right? I mean, he obviously followed her into the timeline there somewhere. What he's doing, we don't know.
And I don't think it's to. I think he's actually trying to do the right thing in this because
I think he is.
I think he's going to try and like stop her.
Yeah.
But as we've seen, when she dropped what are they called? The time.
Those time
bombs, basically.
Yeah, time bombs. Yeah, just corrects timelines, but now she's like disrupting it all.
The whole timeline is like now we're starting to see what could be the events coming up in Spider-Man and Doctor Strange, right?
And and that's right. This is leading into the bigger picture, and I think Loki was always another thing. So it's interesting. I was thinking about the order that this was supposed to come out. Falcon and Winter Soldier was supposed to be the first series to come out, and what you get in there is kind of typical superhero smash them up. It kind of dip you into the streaming service of things, right? And so I think it gets people excited to see what's next. The next thing you get is WandaVision. And it's like, holy cow, what did I just watch? And then here we are, Loki. And that delved into we're getting a little bit into that multiverse type scenario with Scarlet Witch moving in with Doctor Strange. And then now here we are at Loki, showing us the branching.
So yeah, you take those two different shows. You take WandaVision and you take Loki.
Yeah. You
take the two of them, you mash them up a little bit. What do you got? Well, you're going to get chaos coming, I guess, in these next few big movies. I imagine that Spider-Man and Doctor Strange are going to be like over the top.
Oh, I would think so, and I'm looking forward to that kind of branching out where we're going to go. I read a thing, that possibility of with Wanda at the end of her thing, hearing her kids when she was reading the Darkhold, that's the splitting of those time streams, and someone in an alternate timeline that maybe her kids are alive and she hears them calling because through the magic.
Hmm.
So that's an interesting theory. I don't know if that is a possibility, but she's manifested, things in her head. So she's also a little bit off her rocker. So
I I wouldn't rule that out,
no,
because they seem to go off in different directions with a lot of things, but they tie them in so well that this could be causing that. Like, where do these stories fall in the actual timeline in accordance with each other yet? Because a lot of these movies we'll watch, and
yeah,
we don't know exactly when they fall according to the next one until later on in the stories.
that's right.
So is Loki at the same time, running at the same time as that?
Well, that's it.
Is it before?
And Mobius keeps saying that time works differently there.
Yeah.
So we don't know what's going on here. And I think that the thing that's interesting about this, though, with these branching out, what's going to happen, where it's going, and I wonder, like, we were all wondering for the big reveal of who the big bad guy was in WandaVision, and who's the reveal for the big bad guy in Loki. Is it this actual female version Loki, or this other, like, I don't think there's going to be anything. I don't think there's going to be a bad guy behind this.
I don't know if there's gonna be any bad guys behind the streaming stuff.
Yeah.
And if there is, there could be somebody pulling the strings on this still.
Yeah.
Because we are gonna get a big baddie for this phase.
Yeah.
We're gonna get something big.
I think it just has to be because the portals get opened. That's what I think is going to happen.
Possibly. I think to be on level with what they've done in the past, they have to go big.
Yeah.
And I don't know how they tie it in. My guess the big baddie they're gonna bring in,
Yeah.
is my guess right now. My theory. I'm going with Galactus.
You think Galactus, eh?
I think they have to go big. How are they gonna top what they've done? And they're not gonna want to underwhelm people. They're gonna go big.
Well, he's huge. I mean,
Literally, yeah.
He is huge. I mean, and that's an interesting theory. I like that. My pick, if I'm picking one, I'm going to do it too. I think it's Kang, because it's time stream and timelines. I think Kang is it.
I think he's honestly. I agree with you to the fact that I think he's gonna be in this series. I think he'll be in Loki.
That'd be an interesting way to bring him in.
I think that there's gonna be a twist that maybe even if he isn't the bad guy, he's gonna end up in this somehow.
When he shows up at the end, yeah.
Because there's too much time stuff going on, right?
There is. And
you have to tie it in. I think he's gonna show up here.
And it just fits right in with him being a time traveler and wanting kind of dominance, right?
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting about Kang, and a lot of people know he's a relative of Reed Richards.
Yeah,
So I mean, you get Mr. Fantastic.
It's an interesting way to get a little end scene and look at Reed Richards or the Fantastic Four. So because we know they're coming soon.
It's all connected. I mean obviously we're Marvel Comics and how all these characters fit together at some point, but I like the pieces how they're just working our way up there, right? And it's kind of interesting. The one other thing, I want to talk about this, with that you mentioned the female version of Loki. Is she a Loki, or where is she coming from? And something Disney released, and we talked about Loki being gender fluid, right? And it's an interesting way of doing that. Having the female version of Loki, if she's a female or what, who knows? Like,
I don't
showing the different versions of Loki. I think it's kind of an interesting or a neat way of doing it. You know what I mean? Like, because Loki can transform into anybody.
Well, yeah, Loki can be anybody, and he can be any age. He can be whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like
any gender. Yeah.
He can portray himself to be anything. So I don't know if he's like technically like androgynous or whatever, but he can be whatever he wants to be.
Yeah.
But he, because he is one of the what are they called? Because he's not Asgardian. He was born
Frost Giant.
Yeah. So I'm not sure how the Frost Giants work exactly. If they're if they have males, females, or they all look the same, or if they it's hard to say.
I haven't read enough about that to really know.
We may have to actually delve into that and check that out.
Yeah. I mean, so I think it's an inclusive way of including everybody kind of into the mix of things, like regardless of gender, right? Like, and I know there's bigger things on political scales of stuff that
they need to leave politics out of it.
I know, but like I just think it's an interesting way of doing it. But I mean, I'm all for it if you eventually replace Loki, Tom Hiddleston, in the role, and
you can put anybody else in.
Anybody else in, if it's a female Loki or whoever.
It's not like the other characters that they have out there where they're trying to force
yeah
changes in gender or race and creed.
Yeah.
Like, this character can be done that way. No problem, because it's written that way.
Yeah,
There's
and,
not an issue with that.
yeah, exactly. And I think it's good. I mean, like we can, I think with these time stream splits, we can do whatever. And maybe this is your way of replacing old characters with new characters, and it's a possibility, right? Like, or how you introduce new characters where they've been, and all of a sudden they appear, right?
Yeah, you could go that way. I think if you do that though, you risk the danger of really alienating a lot of fans.
Or saturating a
Yeah,
product, right?
because
Yeah.
you want to have visually certain people. Like Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. He is just at this point. It's just he's Iron Man.
You meant the old rumor when they were going to cast Tom Cruise.
You know, and I'll go this
That's
far.
crazy.
We've talked about this stuff before in the past. I will not be the least bit surprised if they have all these different cameos and stuff showing up in Spider-Man. I wouldn't be surprised to see Tom Cruise in this as Iron Man. I would not be surprised to see big names who are possibly going to be cast
Just for
showing,
a quick bit or something. Yeah.
they're going to show alternate universes and different versions of the characters.
Kind of, yeah.
I would not be surprised if that's one of them, or it's going to be a whole bunch. We might see so many different alternate versions of characters. That might be a neat little twist, and kind of like a nugget for the fans, because they're not going to get any more of that. It'll be just okay. That's who.
There's your cameo.
Yeah,
point,
this could be your Iron Man in this universe, but you're never going to see that again, right?
I just want to honestly, I just want to see John Krasinski as Reed Richards. That's what I want to see.
John Krasinski.
Krasinski.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
That's what I want to see.
don't be. I wouldn't be. I would actually honestly be surprised if he's not cast.
I think he'd be
they're not.
great.
They're keeping it quiet right now, and he's been quiet. He's very good chance he's going to be that. I'd actually even be happy if he was one of the alternate versions of Captain America, because he was in the running for it.
He was in the running for it, yeah. But yeah, you're right. The branching out could be lots of cameos, and maybe that's how you get your Tobey Maguire. Like if Norman Osborn, if William Dafoe is in it, and he they're maybe in the midst of a battle.
I have zero doubt.
Also.
I have zero doubt we're going to see basically almost every person, actor, character who's been in any of the Spider-Man movies in the last 20 years in this movie. I think
even that original 1980s one.
Last 20 movies, or last 20 years, I said, not the 1980s. Yeah. No, we're not going to go that far back, because everybody would like, who in the heck is that? But no, Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
The list goes on. Willem Dafoe. We know that what's his name is back as Doc Ock.
Alfred Molina.
Yeah. You know what? Don't be surprised. Jimmy Fox is supposed to be in it. Like,
true.
I'm sure. Like, I think we're still gonna get the Sinister Six in here. We're gonna get Michael Keaton in there, I'm sure. Like, but don't be surprised if these other iterations of these guys come back, and maybe they're gonna use those guys for the future versions, like in this.
Or a Sinister Six or whatever. Yeah. I mean, you could do all. I like it all, and I think Loki is taking us on that first steps of the branching of the timelines in the alternate or the multiverse, right?
Yeah. And it's really setting up some really neat things in the future.
Yeah, looking forward to episode 3 next week.
All technical glitches aside, and we got them all patched up, I hope.
Yeah.
And, that was another episode of Loki. So on to next week's episode 3. Hopefully it just keeps the ball rolling. They've been doing a good job so far.
Yeah, it'll be the halfway point next week. And don't forget to like and subscribe.
Drop some comments in the comment section below. Let us know what you think of Loki, this show.
Any of the shows. Yeah. And definitely ring that notification bell like we like you guys to.
And we'll see you in the next video.